I finally learned that 30 years of quiet devotion can be erased in a single, ugly dinner party. When my husband slammed his hand against the mahogany table, shattering our expensive wine glasses, and screamed, "Say sorry to my sister right now, or get out of my house," he expected me to shrink, cry, and apologize just like I had for a decade. He thought I was still the invisible, obedient wife who funded his lavish lifestyle while his sister insulted my name behind my back. He had no idea that I wasn't just standing up from that chair to leave. I was standing up to detonate every single lie he had built his entire world upon. Before the night was over, the man who demanded I bow in my own home would be locked out on the street with nothing. My name is Clara Vance, and at 38 years old, I stood at the head of my own dining table, watching the man I had loved for a decade look at me with absolute contempt. The crystal chandelier overhead cast a harsh, bright light over the imported roast beef, the roasted garlic potatoes, and the expensive vintage Cabernet I had spent the entire afternoon preparing. It was supposed to be a celebratory dinner. Instead, it was an ambush. Across from me sat my husband, Arthur, his jaw tight, his shoulders squared in that posture of manufactured authority he always wore when he wanted to assert dominance. Next to him sat his younger sister, Chloe, wearing a smug, triumphant smirk that made my stomach churn. For the past 2 hours, Chloe had systematically picked apart everything I poured my soul into. She had mocked my career as a senior architectural designer, calling my projects cute little drawings for middle-class people, and scoffed at the way I dressed, the way I spoke, and how I spent my weekends. I had stayed silent. For 10 years, I had mastered the art of swallowing my pride to keep the peace. I had bitten my tongue through family gatherings where Chloe insulted my family, through holidays where she demanded gifts I couldn't comfortably afford, and through countless evenings where Arthur told me to just understand how Chloe is. But tonight was different. Tonight, Chloe crossed a line she could never walk back. She leaned across the table, tapped her wine glass with a fingernail, and said loudly enough for the entire room to hear, "Honestly, Arthur, I don't know how you stand living with someone so utterly pedestrian. If my wife had as little ambition as Clara, I would have traded her in for a younger model years ago." The silence in the dining room was deafening. I looked at Arthur, waiting for him to defend me, waiting for him to remind his sister that I was his wife, his partner, the woman who had built this life by his side. But Arthur didn't defend me. Instead, he let out a long, heavy sigh, as if I were a troublesome child who had finally pushed him too far. He slammed his palm against the mahogany table. The wine glasses rattled violently, red liquid spilling across the white tablecloth like fresh blood. "That's it," Arthur roared, his face turning crimson. He pointed a shaking finger straight at me, his eyes blazing with fury. "You sit there with that blank, ungrateful look on your face while my sister tries to help you better yourself. You have zero social grace, Clara. You embarrassment me, you embarrass my family, and I am sick of it. Now, you're going to look Chloe in the eye right this second, and you're going to apologize for making this dinner so miserable, or you can pack your bags and leave my house this instant." Arthur's words hung in the air, echoing off the high ceilings of the home I had built with my own 2 hands. As he demanded that I apologize to his sister in my own dining room, a cold wave of clarity washed over me. He called it his house. He actually believed it. 10 years earlier, when we met, Arthur was drowning in student debt with a failing consulting business and zero prospects. I was the one who believed in him. I took on a grueling second job at an architectural firm, working 80-hour weeks while pouring every single penny of my savings into buying this dilapidated historic property. I spent my weekends stripping paint, laying tile, and designing every square inch of this place to turn it into our dream home. While Arthur's consulting firm floundered, burning through cash with nothing to show for it, my career took off. I landed major commercial accounts, quietly carrying our entire financial burden. Whenever Arthur faced a setback, I was his cushion, paying off his mounting business debts, covering his car payments, and funding the luxurious country club weekends where he networked with people like Chloe. I never complained. I thought we were a team building a legacy together. I sacrificed my own sleep, my personal milestones, and peace of mind just to ensure Arthur never had to feel the crushing weight of failure. Whenever he needed a loan, I wrote the check without hesitation. Whenever he wanted to impress his wealthy friends, I stood quietly by his side, playing the supportive, humble wife. I convinced myself that my hard work was our shared success. Looking at him now, flushed with anger and demanding my submission, I realized the bitter truth. Arthur hadn't seen me as a partner in a very long time. To him and his family, I was simply an endless ATM, a quiet servant funded by my own sweat, expected to stay invisible until I was no longer useful. The realization of how deeply Arthur had manipulated me didn't hit me all at once. It came crashing down because of a careless mistake he made just 3 days earlier. Arthur had left his sleek, work-issued tablet on the kitchen island while he rushed out to take a phone call. Usually, I never looked at his personal devices. We had an unspoken rule about privacy, or at least I thought we did. But something in my gut, that sharp, warning instinct that had been buzzing quietly for months, urged me to pick it up. When the screen lit up, it wasn't locked with his passcode. A notification preview from a chat thread flashed across the top. The contact name was saved simply as C, but the message preview made my breath hitch. Once she signs the quitclaim deed over to you, filing for divorce will be a breeze. Don't let her suspect a thing until the house is legally ours. My hands trembled as I unlocked the tablet, tapping open the encrypted messaging app. What I found inside made my blood run cold. There were thousands of messages spanning over a year between Arthur and his sister Chloe. They weren't just venting their frustrations about me, they were orchestrating a calculated corporate and domestic takeover. Message after message detailed their contempt for my quiet nature, laughing about how easy it was to manipulate me into paying the mortgage while Arthur funneled his income into secret offshore accounts. Worse still was the property folder. Arthur had secretly consulted a predatory family law attorney recommended by Chloe. They had drafted a fraudulent quitclaim deed, forging my signature on preliminary documents designed to strip my name off the house title under the guise of estate tax restructuring. They planned to execute the final paperwork at a fake notary public office next month, kick me out with nothing, and split the proceeds of my hard work between themselves. Standing there in the quiet kitchen, staring at the glowing screen, the 10 years of loyalty I had poured into our marriage turned to ash. I wasn't just an underappreciated wife. I was the target of a cold-blooded heist, engineered by the man I had saved from ruin. Instead of shrinking back or letting tears spill down my face like Arthur expected, I did something that completely short-circuited his reality. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I didn't even look angry. I simply stood up from my chair, smoothing down the front of my blouse with deliberate, unhurried slowness, and let out a calm, quiet breath that seemed to echo off the walls. The arrogant smirk on Chloe's face faltered just a fraction, replaced by a sudden, uneasy flicker of confusion. "You want me to apologize, Arthur?" My voice didn't shake. It carried across the silent dining room with a chilling, surgical precision that made both of them freeze. "You want me to bow down in my own dining room to your sister after everything you've orchestrated behind my back?" Arthur's face flushed a deeper, angrier shade of red, his chest heaving as he pointed a trembling finger at me again. "Don't play games with me, Clara. You are crossing the line right now. Apologize to Chloe immediately, or pack your things and get out." I didn't answer him right away. Instead, I turned my back on them and walked slowly toward the hallway console table. I could feel their eyes burning into my spine, completely unaware of what I was about to retrieve. I reached into the sleek leather drawer and pulled out a heavy, crisp manila folder. My fingertips traced the thick stack of papers inside, certified county property deeds bearing only my name, bank forensic audit logs detailing every single dollar Arthur had tried to siphon away, and printed, high-resolution screenshots of the encrypted messages between him and Chloe plotting my financial ruin. I turned back around, walking back toward the table with the steady, measured stride of an architect approaching a structural review. I didn't slam the folder down. I just laid it gently, precisely, in the exact center of the table, right on top of the white tablecloth where the spilled wine was slowly drying. "Open it, Arthur," I whispered, resting my palms lightly on the edge of the table and leaning in. Go ahead. Take a look at the paperwork your little mastermind attorney helped you draft. Look at the signatures. Look at the bank routing numbers. Chloe leaned back, scoffing nervously, though her eyes darted anxiously toward the folder. What is this dramatic nonsense? Arthur, make her stop acting crazy. Shut up, Chloe, Arthur snapped, his voice suddenly sounding hollow, stripped of its forced bravado. His hands were shaking visibly as he reached out, untied the string of the manila folder, and pulled out the top document. The moment his eyes scanned the bold text at the top of the page, the exclusive deed showing the house was purchased entirely with my premarital inheritance and my sole architectural firm earnings, with zero legal claim belonging to him, the color drained completely from his face. He looked up at me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, the terrifying realization washing over him in a single, crushing second. He wasn't the master of this house. He was just an uninvited guest who had forgotten whose name was on the foundation. Arthur stared at the paper in his hands, his knuckles turning pure white as the magnitude of what I had uncovered finally hit him. The arrogant, booming authority he had weaponized just moments ago evaporated completely, replaced by a pathetic, stammering panic. He looked from the deed to the forensic bank audit logs, his eyes wide with horror as he realized every hidden transfer, every secret withdrawal, and every single plot he and Chloe had hatched was documented in unassailable detail. Clara, wait, Arthur choked out, his voice cracking as he reached blindly across the table toward me. We can talk about this. It was a misunderstanding. Chloe didn't mean. Don't you dare. I interrupted, my voice cutting through his excuses like a razor. I didn't raise my tone. I didn't need to. You called this your house, Arthur. You demanded I apologize in my dining room. Well, let's clear up the confusion right now. I walked over to the front entryway, pulled his heavy leather suitcase out of the hall closet, and unceremoniously dropped it right at his feet with a loud thud that echoed off the hardwood floor. This is my house, built with my sweat, paid for with my earnings, and owned by my name alone, I said, pointing an unwavering finger toward the front door. And your tenure here is officially over. Chloe jumped up from her chair, her face contorted in sheer fury and disbelief. You can't just kick him out. You can't do this. You're ruining his life. No, I replied, looking her dead in the eye. I am simply refusing to fund it anymore. Get out. Both of you. Now. Arthur looked around the magnificent room, finally understanding that his decade of freeloading, manipulation, and betrayal had officially come crashing down. Dragging his suitcase behind him like dead weight, he slinked out the front door into the cool night air, with Chloe scurrying frantically behind him. When the heavy oak door clicked shut, the silence that rushed in wasn't lonely or terrifying. It was absolute, profound peace. I walked over to the window, watching them disappear down the driveway, and took a deep, steady breath of air that was entirely my own. For the first time in 10 years, I wasn't carrying anyone else's weight. I wasn't playing a supporting role in someone else's ambition. I was standing in the exact life I had built, completely unbroken, completely free, and completely victorious.